In this video, you will learn about Mendel's laws of inheritance. Mendel studied the genetics of pea plant and he traced inheritance of variety of characteristics like flower color, seed color, height of plant, etc. He started crossing of poor breeding parents with different form of characteristics. A poor breeding parent has homozygous genes for a character. That means for the character tall and dwarf, the alleles are same. So it is said to be homozygous. Literally means a poor breeding plant will always make more offspring like itself when self-fertilized over many generations. When he crossed poor breeding tall pea plant with poor breeding dwarf pea plant, he got tall pea plant itself in F1 generation. He wondered there is no dwarf plant or plant with intermediate height. At that time, people would think when crossing a tall and dwarf plant, parents' traits should be blend in the offsprings. The hybrid offspring should be intermediate height. But instead, Mendel's results showed that the dwarf trait had been completely disappeared. He called the trait that was visible in the F1 generation as dominant and the trait that was hidden or lost as the recessive trait. That's what law of dominance says. Law of segregation is about the time of gamete formation. When an organism makes gametes, each gamete receives just one gene copy which is selected randomly. Every organism have two copies of genes for a character. Here, for the tall character, there is two copies, capital T and capital T. One is received from his father and one from mother. Similarly, for the female parent also two copies of genes for the dwarf character, one from her mom and one from her dad. And while gamete formation, the gamete will receive just one copy among them. You can see only capital T is receiving by the male gamete and only small t is receiving by the female gamete. That's what law of segregation says. Then he started self-pollinating heterozygous F1 generation plant. Why it is called heterozygous? For the parents, the alleles are different. This time, two kinds of gametes will form because the parents are heterozygous. He called tall and dwarf plant in 3:1 phenotypic ratio and 1:2:1 genotypic ratio. What is phenotype? How the plant is appearing. Here, dwarf and tall are the appearance of plant and it is in the ratio 3:1. And what is genotype? It is the unique sequence of DNA. There is two capital T and small t and one capital T and one small t. So it is 1:2:1. Let's see law of independent assortment. This time Mendel took two characteristics for his experiment. Tall yellow seeded plant and dwarf green seeded plant. As per law of segregation, only one copy of gene is received by the male and female gamete and formed tall yellow plant in the F1 generation. That is, they express the characteristics of only one parent as per law of dominance. I have done a separate video on law of dominance. Please go through that. Link will be there in description box. Here Mendel raised a question. Is the gene cell transferring to gametes as a unit or independently? This experiment alone is not enough to answer this question because either they are packaged or independent, the offspring would be the same. If the height character and the color character from the father is act as a package, similarly if the height character and the color character from the mother is act as a package, Then in the offsprings also they will act as a unit and will get tall yellow plant itself. If the genes are passing into gametes individually, in offspring also they will act as individual units. Again we will get the same tall yellow plant itself. So the experiment doesn't answer Mendel's question regarding whether the genes are transferring into gametes as a unit or independently. Then he started self-fertilization of the F1 generation. What was the F1 generation? Tall yellow plant in a heterozygous format. So, from these plant, the possible male and female gametes are capital T capital Y, capital T small capital Y and small t small y. What would have happened if the genes are passed into the gamete as a unit? That is, the male and female gamete receives both height and color characteristic genes either from their father or from their mother. If it is like that, we would get tall yellow and short green plant in 3:1 phenotypic ratio. But let's see what happened in reality. This is the actual result Mendel got from his experiment. The tall yellow, tall green, short yellow and short green plants in 9:3:3:1 phenotypic ratio. In this, we can expect tall yellow plant. The short green plant also we can expect to some extent. But from where the tall green and short yellow plant came? Here is the answer of Mendel's question regarding whether the genes are passed into the gametes as a unit or independently. Here you can see the gametes receives the genes as a random. They are independently receiving the genes from their male and female parent. Then only Mendel would get the above result. This is law of independent assortment. That means while gamete formation, genes are passed into the gametes independently, not as a unit. Let's draw a Punnett square in order to get the offsprings during the self-fertilization of F1 generation. Finally, we got 9:3:3:1 phenotypic ratio while self-fertilizing the F1 generation. This is happened only because the genes are passed into the gametes independently of each other. So now we have completed all the 3 laws of inheritance put forward by Mendel. The first law is law of dominance. When parents with poor contrasting traits are crossed, only one form of trait will appear in the next generation. And the second law is law of segregation. When an organism makes gametes, each gamete receives just one copy of 2 genes which is selected randomly. And the third law is law of independent assortment. The alleles of 2 or more different genes get sorted into gametes independently of one another. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe.